Welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. So today we're working on the facing of this cabinet. That'll be pieces of maple 1.5 inches wide that'll go all around the perimeter, across that shelf there, of course across here. And I'm working right now on what I'm calling the feet that'll go just along this bottom edge on both sides. So I have a piece of rough maple with my little square edge or jointing little piece there, kind of a bed rail, but not really a bed rail, something equivalent. And just going to straighten out that edge. Then we'll cut this down to 1.5 inches wide, put it through the surface planer, put it on here and see how it looks. And that is today's adventure. Now, before cutting these to length, I'm going to run these through the thickness planer, the surface planer, just to get a nice edge on everything. I won't worry about this piece at the moment. That's just use that in the future. But we'll concentrate on these 3 pieces. I only need 2, well, probably even 1. This piece will probably be enough. But I got a couple more pieces here that we can work with, so we'll get them all straightened up. I've got 3 pieces now that we can work with, so let's find the best 22 or 20 inches or so out of these and make some feet. Of the 3 pieces that I cut, I figure I've got 2 nice blank potentials for feet here and a nice blank potential for the edge of the anchor shelf. So I want to keep that for the anchor shelf. One problem I have with one of the feet is there was a hole in this wood, and I'm going to, in the interest of being frugal and making the most out of this wood that I can, I'm going to put a plug in there, or try putting a plug in there. Again, this is a foot that is going to be sitting underneath the piece, so in no way visible except the edge here. That's the only visible piece of the whole thing. So I figure putting a plug in here is a good way to test the plug for one and to reuse the wood, or use the wood most effectively. So I'm setting up the plug cutter over in the drill press, and I'll be back in a second when I have that done. So the piece that I'm wanting, the plug that I want to put in, you can see is in a hole that has a dark streak running right through it. So with my sample material that I've got here, I'm going to take, probably be best to do it on this side. I'm going to try and take the plug so that I get a portion of that streak. Probably take the plug so that half of the plug will be in the dark and half will be in the lighter wood, and then it should be able to blend in a little better. But as I said earlier, this is a piece that's on the floor underneath the cabinet, not going to be visible, but hey, if you can try and make it better, you know, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well, right? I'll pop the plugs out with the bandsaw. see how they fit into the hole. And probably wouldn't have made sense to drill out that hole a little bit, but I'm going to go with that. So that plug will fit in there pretty nicely. The wood grain can blend in well. Once it's sanded, there'll be the little filler that's required on this piece, but it's better than a gaping hole. So there's our plug in place. Just gives the glue some time for that to set. And in the meantime, I'm going to cut our other leg to length and dress that and see how it looks on the cabinet. So this is how this foot is intended to go on the cabinet. So it will be flush with the surface here so that the facing can come right across it. Now, the reason that I'm putting this foot on here is because this plywood, though it's a maple-sided plywood, this plywood is just a veneer, and it is easily damaged if it was to be dragged across a surface. So this kind of becomes like a little shoe on the bottom of the cabinet to protect that plywood edge. I'm also going to put a quarter round on 3 sides of this, just to, 1, make it a softer edge, and 2, make it so that it won't catch on anything. You know, this is a piece that is heavy, so it's likely going to be positioned and then slid a little bit on the carpet or the floor to get it into position. So that rounded edge will help it move a little better. So we'll put a quarter round here, here, and on this inside edge, primarily just to make it easier to hold on to. That's a pretty sharp edge. And then we'll put a quarter round on this surface here and on this surface here. Sorry, the back and side. So I'm going to set up the router to make that quarter inch, put on that round over, and we'll put the piece back up here and take another look at it. All right, here is an up close and personal look at running through with a quarter round on this stock. Again, I'm just going to do 2 edges to start with, and we'll put it on the cabinet and see how it looks. So that gives a little nicer profile to the piece. We're going to do this treatment on the entire face of the cabinet, just to kind of, 1, make it easier to handle, and 2, it kind of blends in with the curve on the top, so it just kind of continues that theme. So let's see how this looks on the cabinet itself. So here's our foot, just kind of loosely held up to the cabinet. And I think that's going to work out very well. I won't be rounding this edge because we want the face coming down, and it should be the front of the face that gets rounded, if anything. So I'm not going to do that. And the inside edge, I won't do a round over on that inside edge, but I will sand it just to get rid of the sharpness that's left from the tooling. So with that in place, or with that cut, I like it. We're going to go with that. Now there is a slight variation in wood color, but I mean there's a variation in the color of maple everywhere you go. So we have this section of the foot that just blends in perfectly with the color of the maple here, but then we get into a little bit of darker wood. So That is the nature of maple, but it will make for a very interesting piece. So, and this has a definite function to it, so it's a necessary part. Okay, I'm going to have to run out and do some errands today, or for the rest of the day, so I probably won't be back on this until tomorrow, and we'll pick up then. And there is the first foot attached onto the side of the cabinet. Our little plug is underneath here, so we'll sand that off in a little bit when the filler is set. Have a look at it, and there is the second foot put onto the cabinet. So we are now at full height, 92 inches. This little 3/4 inch piece is added to that. In fact, it might be about an 1/8 or a 1/16 inch shorter than 92, but we're pretty close. So next bit is going to be cutting the facing for the sides and here. And we're going to have a little bit of work to do to make a curved piece for the top, but we'll get to that in a bit. So first, we're going to take this piece of rough maple that I've got. It's got a bit of a curved edge to it, so we're going to use our bed rail technique and get a nice straight edge. And then we'll cut this into 1.5 inch strips, and away we go. Alright, I got now 4 pieces here. I'm just going to measure up, see how many more I need to cut at 1.5 inches. Also keeping in mind that we need to do the shelves. There are 4 shelves in addition to these, maybe 5 shelves in addition to the sides and the bottom and the anchor shelf. So we'll do a little bit of calculating. I'll be right back. So on top of these 4 pieces here, I'm going to need another 3 strips. So I'm just going to make a nice straight edge along here and then rip this down into 3 more strips. And we'll have all the facing that we need. All the facing that we need. What I'm going to do now is set up the surface planer and get this all down to the same exact same thickness. Then we're ready to go. All right, got the planer set up. Going to go through all 7 pieces, get them to a smooth surface, and uniform thickness is kind of the critical thing. I'm starting with just a slightly more than 3/4 inch thick. So I'm hoping when we add it, it'll be almost exactly 3/4. It's likely going to be slightly less than 3/4, but it'll be fine for our purposes. So I'll put you on time lapse as we go through all this milling. So I wound up taking a little bit more than I had originally intended to take off these. These are now down to 5/8 inch rather than 3/4. So we're 1/8 inch shy of 22 inches wide. But I'm really happy with the result of the wood. This is some beautiful maple. It is exactly the same species as we have on the sides. So it's just going to blend in perfectly. Very happy with that stuff. Okay. Now I'm going to lay some out on the cabinet. We'll need to make some roundovers, but I'm going to pick the best pieces for the job before I do any rounding over. So as we start to do the facing, the first piece of facing that I need to put on is actually for this shelf here. So we'll put that on, then the two sides, and then this bottom, and then we'll worry about the top and the curve. So I have cut that shelf face to length, and I'm just going to round over the two edges and then put that in. I'm going to round over the other facing once it's in place, because the facing that comes across here and comes across here, I want the round over to be going around that curve. I don't want the rounding to be down the middle. So it'll make it a more contiguous look. So I'll be back and I'll set up the camera and we'll go through that round over on our shelf piece. I'm just going to run that through the sander just to kind of even it out a little wee bit. Okay, got our piece cut to length, rounded and sanded off, so he's ready to set in here. So we'll put that in now, and then we can start thinking about the vertical bits. Done a quick sand of our face piece here. The coloring, by the way, is just absolutely spot on to the cabinet. This is going to look very nice when done. I'll just put a little bit of glue down this edge, and we'll tack it in place. Went over this side with a damp cloth to get rid of any the excess glue that came out. And of course we'll do a final sand just to get rid of absolutely any remnant of it, but just want to make sure I got rid of anything that was a drip or potential drip. That's all gone. Looking reasonably flush, just a light sand will finish that off. Okay, I'm going to put on the piece on the other side. I'll probably put on this piece here, and then we'll look at doing the top. So I'll come back when I'm ready to tackle the top pieces. So I have our two sides down at the bottom, facing on the bottom shelf. Of course, we put the facing on the anchor shelf a little earlier. So now I'm working on getting the bits up here, and I'm working on this curved piece. And what I'm going to do, rather than cut a bunch of pieces and join them together and write them out, I'm going to use a single piece and make the curve that'll come up to this point. And then we'll run a straight piece across there. We'll make a curved single piece there that goes around. Fewer joins, it'll look a little bit cleaner, I think, and preserve the grain all the way around. And maple being a hardwood, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to crack and fall apart. We'll see. So here's the piece laid out. It's 1.5 inches wide. It comes up here. And I've marked the curve just using my compass to go around. So I'm going to cut this out on the bandsaw, being a little generous on the width. On the outside, we're going to use a trim bit to flush that up with the top, and we'll probably just do some very careful sanding on the inside to get a nice smooth curve there. So I'll go over to the bandsaw and we'll cut it out there. So overall, this piece is fitting pretty well. There'll be a little bit of an adjustment to make here, and I'm not too sure how I want to adjust that, because I do have a door that's going to fit in here too, so be a little bit mindful of the door. And then our top here, coming around the side, this is looking pretty good. So I'm quite pleased with that cut. So I'm going to give this a good sanding. I won't go beyond sanding on this piece. I'm just going to sand it down. And let's attach it, see what it looks like. All right, so there's our curved pieces, just loosely placed. I haven't nailed them down or anything yet. So next step will be tacking them in place, well, setting them in place, and then using a trim router to go around the outside to get it the edge we want. And then doing some sanding on the inside to get the edge we want. So I'll probably do a little initial sanding first, just to get it really close, and then we'll put it on. Not sure how to do that. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit overnight, but we're getting close with that one, and I didn't get quite as far today as I wanted to, but we did okay. So that's our facing so far, and I'll call that a video for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.